Now, I stuck this piece of paper in place to help keep the Bondo from sagging down, so I'm glad that it's above the line right now so that I'll be able to cut that down just like I did that one over there. Added a little more tape to help protect the area. This should be pretty tight. I think these repairs are going to be really focused, and this was definitely a good one. So I decided to add a couple last patches. That one up there because I've cut the stem off that tab, and I'm going to match this one here by filling that. I don't think the indentation on any of these is going to go away forever, but essentially seeing the indentation on this one and that one up there, I'll be able to place where the wall goes, and this one, I think that's just going to be there forever basically. It's pretty close and flat, but I can still feel a bit of a rise going on around the edges. Tomorrow sometime that should be dry, or at least a lot drier, so that I can sand that area away. I filled up this area just a little bit, so I should be able to slice all that away. I'm pretty sure this raggedy looking stuff at the top here is covered. I'll be able to slice that away as well and get that down looking like that, as well as that one there. So I'm glad this happened, because otherwise I wouldn't have done that, and I would have had to have pulled all the pieces off to fill in these gaps. It's gonna look a lot better now, so stay tuned for the next video coming up. And a little while later, here's where things stand. The top one has been sliced down but not sanded. This one has been sanded and is the flattest that I've gotten it yet. This has been sliced down. This has been shaped a couple times. So I'm going to wait for this to settle up, and then I'll be able to patch in any last remainders. I don't know if I mentioned adding this section here just to even out that floor a little bit, and that's definitely going to take till tomorrow morning, at least, if not tomorrow night, till it's workable. So I think that's finally it for tonight. See you in the next video. So the next morning, here's a rough look at what's going on. This is going to need a little patching, as well as this one here. That's just a little too rough, obviously. This needs a little more rolled over the top of it. This one is fine. This one is going to be hidden. You won't be able to see it from any angle, doesn't matter. And then here, I got to sand this down, obviously, but the repairs needed to be even far less than I did here. Underneath, you can see it looks like a mess, but that doesn't matter because it's invisible. I just did that for extra to be sure I was getting all the coverage I needed. Let me cut some of that away. I think it was just a video by Trekworks that I was watching where he was talking about the difference between regular Bondo body filler and this Bondo 3M glazing putty spot stuff. This is much softer than regular body filler would be. If this had been made out of body filler, it would have been dried in several hours and rock hard. This is kind of soft and pudgy 12 hours later. So I just filled in a little more of the edges. I tested out the command console in place, and this area was lacking just a little way up here, so I just filled out all of that to make sure there's good coverage going on. I've left those three alone, filled in a little here, and on this one cut it down, shaved it, got it as flat as I could. Now I'm going to wait for this top to dry, then I'll shave that thin, and then I'll fill the stairwell itself. I did a little sanding here. I had dented the floor accidentally, and I was just thinking maybe I could get rid of it just through sanding down some of the matte clear that had built up over time, but it did leave a smudge there, quite obviously. I'm thinking another round of matte clear will fix that, but I'll test that out, since at this point I might just redo the whole floor. I'll go out and get the 1735 I wanted in the first place and make a full week of it. I'm definitely enjoying the challenge.
So this was workable a lot faster than I thought it would be. That top is all smoothed down really nice. I'm going to let it dry a little while longer. I'm going to put some Bondo on the wall, the downstairs wall. Did a little more sanding here and there. Going to work on this again. And here it is.
And here it is. Fully sanded. Oh, I still got to do the inside of that. But everything else is pretty much set. I'm going to test fit the command console in the back room here to see how good this is going to look right now.
You may have noticed in the previous clip that my voice was kind of diminished. This is why. Just got it the other day. All that painting I did in FlightLog 23, that just really killed me by the end of it. So now, even for Bondo, I'll be wearing this. I'll have a special tooltip video just on this device alone. But so far, out of the 6 to 8 hours that I've been using it, the air is clear, easily breathes. It's a really comfortable mask to wear. It's not any particular brand, and we'll see how it goes over time. Back to the model.
I've wet sanded and filled all the areas here. What I'm going to do now is test fit the command console and the back room. Let's take a look. First up, since it'll be really quick, I want to take a look at the space pod room. I think I mentioned that in the first 2 seasons this was a solid door. In the 3rd season they turned it into the space pod, and even then either some of the episodes were filmed out of order or something else happened. They couldn't find the right door. But sometimes, even when the space pod has been shown there, this is one solid door that doesn't look anything like the space pod door does. So I've left this much room in the bottom there. I'm just going to shine up an LED from here, and we just got to put that backdrop in there. There's a good amount of depth going on to the room, but it's too bad I had to angle it this steeply, because that means that I'll have to put the cutout that much closer to the front door. Now, I would have liked for a little more depth going on. Over on the back room. So this is definitely going to have to be set down in a few tries. But having the tabs there definitely helped to put the piece in place, but I can still do this without it. I think having the back attached has also reshaped the plastic to some degree. That's about where it wants to sit, but this is where it should sit. But the bottom I put here on the side is more than enough to cover up the space. When I've got this locked in place, I might just do a seal around here to make sure the light is completely blocked out all the time. And up at the command console, we're finished. Nice and smooth. Floor underneath is blocked really well. None of this paint matters because the wall's going over that, and none of this matters because the wall's going over that. You know, I might just be able to get away with sanding this straight down. I gotta find a stick to make this work with.
I just put together this emery board, 600 grit, glued to a popsicle stick.
So there's not a lot here that I don't like. The floor is pretty much well filled up, as is that one there. This section of floor here could use a little more work. I can find the reflection. It almost looks gone on the camera. Then over here, just a little more fine work too. I didn't go too heavy with the primer. I think this is a good example right here of exactly how thick the last couple layers of clear matte were. There it is. So that's still fairly visible. And I do want to get rid of that. I don't know where this came from, but I'll get rid of that. This stuff here doesn't matter because that's hidden behind a wall. And there are a few doubters that seem to think that this seam would be impossible to get rid of, or that it was beyond my skill levels. Well, you know what? That seam don't exist no more. So this is looking pretty good. I'm going to call my LHS and see if they've got some 1735, since that's the color I really wanted this to be anyway. You know, I think I just love seeing the floor in this condition. And that's why I keep coming back to this. This area here by the bay is going to need another round, unfortunately, but everything else I think is set. Let's get painting.
I ain't going near that puppy.
Another note about the floor here. I just checked the corners and they looked a little loose, so I glued some shims in there to help get them more square. And I just sprayed all this area with white primer, as you can see. Once this is dry, this is going to go 1706, the color of the wall that it should be. We're at a rail downstairs for both of those, so that'll help give a little better glow from the light that's going to be going up through there. This section is going to have its own LED, so this doesn't necessarily have to be painted white. In fact, I may even repaint that black. But all of this is definitely going 1706. Once that is dry and matted, then it can be taped up, and then that'll just be blocked off so I can do the top with some dark brown. And as you can see here, that little dent is gone. Over here on this side, that's all nice and filled up. Then over here we have enough base that we need and everything looks good. So, moving on. The goal here was to go not quite too dark. So there's a few spots here where you can kind of see some of the tone, at least from underneath, some of the red here. Really, really light coat of primer is all this was about, because the colors that are going on now are going to be so much darker than those that it's not going to matter. It looks like I managed to get no dust in the coat, which is always nice. I thought I saw some hairs when it was initially wet, but it could have just been the texturing or the patterning of the paint. It's still cold to the touch, but it's definitely dry as such. Nevertheless, this is going to sit overnight, at least get another 12 hours in. It's several hours old at this point. I should probably start with the bottom here and get this out of the way. Actually, I only need to mask this. Yep, that's what I'll do. Rather than painting this 1706 first, I'm just going to mask it off. And at this point I feel like the architect in the Matrix. Rest assured, we have destroyed Zion 6 times and we have gotten exceptionally efficient at it. Get some more light in here so I can see what's going on. Now there's the slightest bit of an edge on this one. Fortunately I cut several. Let's check this. Alright, this one is smooth, so we can destroy this one. I don't want to damage the edge of the circle by really trying to pry this up with my fingernails. There we go. Alright. Spot on. That's what I wanted to avoid right there. Alright, we are ready to go. So the next step you've definitely seen a dozen times so far at the very least. We'll get the airbrush going. I do want to give this a quick light sanding to get rid of any little bits of dust, so I'll do that right now. Sanding this down just now did eliminate a bunch of little tiny specks of debris, so I'm happy I did that. Took it into the bathroom, did a quick wet sanding with, in this case I think it was 400 grit I happened to pick up. I got everything down nice and smooth, toweled it off, and I just ran it under a heat gun for a little while. Essentially a hair dryer if you've got one of those too. This is nice and toasty warm. So I'm going to let it cool down to room temperature for a few minutes and start preparing my paint right now. Alright, so the first time that I sealed up the floor, I used this gloss clear. It got that little speckling going on from the last FlightLog, as you probably remember. That was no good. I redid the floor. I tried this again just to make sure. Same thing, no bad result. So I figured maybe this gloss is bad. Switched over to this matte clear, which has served me well on every other color, but on this brown that I used, it gave me the same speckling. No good. I'm not trusting it for a second time on that. Which brings us to what used to be known as Future Floor Wax, now called Pledge Floor Care Tile and Vinyl Floor Finish with Future Shine. Ugh, they couldn't have made that a more horrific name, I don't think. So the idea with this is that you can either shoot it straight or thin it down with your airbrush. Some people will put 10% isopropyl in there, some people will go for 90, and like I said, some people shoot this straight. It's going to be a glossy finish, and it may be a little glossier than I want for the floor, but I'm going to go with it anyway. It takes about half an hour to cure. I'll probably give it a couple light coats. Some people do one full coat. They're all over the place with how to use this product. Some people get good results with one particular method, other people get bad results with the same method. there's really no way to really tell with all the research I've been doing over the last couple weeks. But either way, we're going to give this a shot. I'll probably shoot it on some test plastic first, and then we'll go with a final floor coverage, and at that point I can glue pieces down to the floor. A freaking men.